Welcome to the Friday webinar. Today we're going to be covering RhoHub 2.0, which was just released about 3 days ago. And we're going to cover how to create a project in RhoHub, and then we're going to show how to work on the roads and RhoSync application. So by the end of this webinar, we will have a working row store example, which you're probably familiar with. Which will have synchronized data, and we're going to show also how to install this application onto an Android emulator. Okay, so when you first create your RhoHub account, when you log in, you're going to be presented with this screen, and it's going to basically tell you to install Git on your machine, and then you'll add your public SSH key. The way that we're going to be interacting with RhoHub is using the Git command line tool. So you'll need your public SSH key to be able to commit code and pull code from RhoHub. If you've used GitHub before, this is sort of a familiar workflow for you. If you haven't used Git or GitHub before, I would highly recommend checking out some Git resources on the web. There's several popular books and sites on Git. Okay, so in my machine here, I've already got Git installed, so I'm going to skip to this public SSH key step. So what I'm going to do is, on my Mac, I've got this little utility called pbcopy, and I'm just going to copy it. Is it Brian?
Yeah, it's just right there. IDR, say.
Oh.
Utility slash.
Copy this to my clipboard. And then on my RhoHub account, I'll just go to SSH keys, add public key. You'll see that it added my public key here. So the next step is I want to create a new project. And if you've built the row store example before, this will be familiar to you. I'm just going to be walking through building that store example. So let's call this row store. And in this new project dialog, you'll notice there's a checkbox here that's checked called Generate Apps. What this will do, if this is checked, is it will actually generate the roads application and the RhoSync application at the same time. So that way you don't have to generate them locally. So go ahead and create a new project. And you'll see it gives me some steps here for how to get started with my project. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and clone this. There's actually a typo here. Oops. And it used my the key that I uploaded to authenticate with the RhoHub Git server. So, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the RhoSync application as well. Oops, I don't need to copy the whole thing. Sorry. Okay, so now that I've got both of these applications cloned locally, I can go ahead and open them up. I'll just use TextMate to open both of them. And you can see it generated this roads application with the familiar structure and a corresponding RhoSync application. So what I want to do here is I'm going to add the product model to the roads application, and then the product source adapter to my RhoSync application. So go restore roads, product, give it a name, brand, price, quantity and SKU. And then I'm going to add a link to that on my front page. Link to products. And it's the product model. And we can try running just the RhoStore product. Well, the first thing you'll need to do is to set your roads SDK. This is because when the project was generated on RhoHub, it used the generator that was actually in the RhoHub system. So when you clone it locally, you need to set it here. And then you can actually check this in. It won't affect anything with your environment on RhoHub. So go ahead and do this. Make run iPhone. Okay. And we'll see here. Oh, right. And there's a new version of the, there's this emulator I have to set because the iPhone SDK 402 includes the emulator version. So I want to specify 4.0.2 of the emulator. Okay. So here's my application. You can see it has that products link. Everything here is just like the normal RhoStore product. And well, I want to add sync now to this. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll enable sync in my model. And that's actually all I have to do on the roads application. You'll notice when you develop roads and road sync applications locally, you need to specify this sync server for your locally running sync server. Well, in our case, we're not going to be running road sync at all on our machine. We're just going to be running it inside of RhoHub. So you notice that it was actually generated with this link to our road sync application, which is not deployed yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the product source adapter now. RhoSync source product. You'll see my RhoSync application. I've got a product, and I'm going to go ahead and use the sample code here from our Git repository. Just in the interest of time here, so I don't have to type it. Okay, and I want to deploy this to RhoHub. So the way that RhoHub works is it takes your Git repository for your application and will use that to perform different actions. In the case of RhoSync, we're going to take our RhoSync application and deploy it. So I need to commit my changes back up to RhoHub. In order to do that, I'll just do. Oh, okay, so one question we have here is how do you get the sync server URL if you're importing a locally developed app to RhoHub? That's a great question. So actually, I didn't get to it yet in the console here. What you'll see for your RhoSync application, there's this deploy box. Since I haven't deployed it yet, it doesn't show any information here. But if you click on these little help question marks, it gives you sort of instructions on the different actions you can do. In this case, for deployment, this would be my sync server setting. So I recommend if you're following along and looking around in your RhoHub account, check out these little question mark icons for tips on the different functions you can do. There's also one here on building, which we're going to cover in a little bit. And there's also one on SSH keys. So if you're not familiar with adding SSH keys, it shows you how to add them either on Windows, Linux, or Mac. Okay, so now that we've got some changes here, we want to commit them. I'm just going to use the Git interface here. We'll do git add settings, sources, and spec. So now if I do a git status, I'll see all of these are committed to be staged to be committed. So I'll do git commit -m, adding product source, and we'll do git push. Great. And I actually want to do the same for my roads application. Go ahead and add app, and actually I just need to add app. Great. So now that I've committed my RhoSync application, I can go ahead and deploy it, which is really easy. I just click on the deploy here. And this will take, the first time you deploy it, it'll take up to about a minute. The reason for that is it has to bootstrap a server environment. We're actually using Heroku for this, so it sets up a new Heroku instance and it deploys your RhoSync application with Redis database as well. And you'll notice when the action that you're performing here is done, this little button will have a green LED light instead of a yellow. So I'll go ahead and start this up again just to get it ready. Great. Okay, so now you can see that our application is deployed. There's a link here to actually see the web interface. So I can go ahead and click on that, and there's my RhoSync server. So if you're not familiar with the RhoSync web console, you can go ahead and just log in directly. The default password is empty. And you'll see I've got the default license is up to 10 devices for testing. So I can see now I just have an empty RhoSync application. So let's go ahead and log in. And by default, there's no authentication business logic, so I can log in as anybody. Let's just call this test user and password. And go ahead and view. I should have products now. There's my products. And now if I refresh this page, I should see there's my test user. And I can actually drill down, see the device that connected, and I can go and see the copy of the data that this device has. So all this would behave as a normal RhoSync application as you expect. So I just want to mention here some other utilities. Obviously you can undeploy, but there's also two other actions here. You can restart your RhoSync application, and you can also access the logs. So if I go ahead and look at the logs, it'll take a few seconds to grab the logs. Let's see why that might have. Sometimes it doesn't log very much information here. There we go. So now you can see this is the console output of my RhoSync application. and you can also restart. So that is that's a basic working RhoStore example. So what I want to show now is RhoHub's build cloud. So what I can do now with my code is I can deploy it. I can build for for either Android, BlackBerry, or Windows Mobile. And you have some different options here. The default version of your application is just the latest code in the master branch, but let's say you made a tag of your code and pushed it to RhoHub, you could build that tag as well. Or if you had a branch of your application like 1.0 stable or something, you could build that. And the default Roads revision is going to be the latest released version of Roads. But you could also, if you wanted to build with the master branch, you could just build with the master branch there. But I'm going to go ahead and build with 2.0.3 because that's the version that I was using locally. And I'm going to build for Android 2.2. And this will take this will take about a minute. It's actually building on our in the RhoHub build cloud. It will build entirely from source, so that way you can make sure that if you're, for example, building from the master branch, you're always going to get the latest code. And again, I would recommend checking out these tool question mark sections. It'll talk to you about how to install for Android, for BlackBerry, or for Windows Mobile. So you notice for Android, there's only the Android SDK that you need to install. We don't cover how to install it here, but if you go to the android.com site and download the SDK, you can easily install it. Then for BlackBerry or Windows Mobile, you actually just need the simulator, so you just need to download a BlackBerry simulator from their site, or for Windows Mobile you can download the developer toolkit, which will give you the Windows Mobile emulators. And there's also more information on our Roads documentation on the on rhoMobile.com/docs. Okay, so our Android build is finished. I'm going to go ahead and download that. And if there was an error here, you would see a failed message and the build log as well. So great. So now I go in. And go to downloads. It's going to be, let me see. And I'm going to just follow these steps here that the build instructions give me. First thing I'm going to do is create my AVD. Next, I'm going to launch the AVD and give it a minute to start up.